I don't know about you, but the pace of change seems to be increasing. When I was a child, there was a lot of routine. Everything seemed pretty normal. The occasional changes to that routine were like starting a new term, moving house, that kind of thing. Yeah, they used to freak me out as a child. I'm hoping that my children will have a slightly different experience, because if the last 2 years have taught us nothing, is that change is constant and accelerating and building all the time. So I think maybe the children who were born since 2010 have probably got change hardwired into their psyche in a way that it wasn't for children of the 60s like myself. But change on contracts is also really important, and it's dealt with really in quite weird ways. Sometimes you have no change mechanism at all. Well, that's dangerous, because otherwise you can't change your contract except with another contract. So that kind of works for extra works, but it's not very good if you want to change the content or you want to take works away. So having a change mechanism is a really useful tool. And it should be a mutual right to change, because the client has ideas of what they want to achieve, and the supplier has ideas about how that can be achieved. These two should weave together. You can't just have a client going, by the way, things are changing on site. Contracts are collaborative. They should be about using the creativity of both parties to come up with a solution. So that change, particularly when we're looking at outcome focused contracts, should be a mutual thing. Now, you could have a change provision which is very strict, that needs to be signed, sealed, delivered on the back of a unicorn by an elf. You can do all of that stuff. But nowadays, most changes are done through email. Now, email counts as in writing. But do you want to filter it through a particular email address? Because then you've got a proper log of it. Do you want to make sure that once you've done a change, that person who proposed it or one of the parties actually then updates all the other contract documents, so you now know what the new program is, the new budget is, the new specification is? Now, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in the world at the moment in 2022, which means that actually we need change provisions to be flexible, to allow dynamic decisions, to change suppliers of materials because of trade sanctions, that change labour requirements because of COVID restrictions, that change transport arrangements because of blockages in the Suez Canal or Icelandic volcanoes erupting, all that kind of stuff. And these things can actually help your project. Change is not to be feared on all occasions. Now, when we start a project, normally there's an information imbalance. One person knows a lot at the beginning, the other person is kind of creeping up there. Because there's not perfect information on a project when we start, it's important that as we get more information, as we dig under the soil, or as we look in somebody's closet, or when we determine how we're going to manufacture some innovative piece of tech, we can be flexible. We're not just stuck with the initial idea. Now, how many times when you're booking a holiday do you kind of go, oh, I'll tell you what, let's have 3 weeks in Sicily. And then you look at it, you think, no, actually, we'd quite like a couple of weeks in Scotland instead, and maybe a week somewhere else. We change our plans all the time, and contracts should be flexible enough to allow that. You need a simple, clear process, which doesn't have too many hurdles, but make sure there's a good record. Now, the Federation of Master Builders know that quite a lot of their members may not be great at process, so they've got a change of works form, and that just acts as a prompt, as a checklist, to remind you of the things that you need to list if you're going to change the project, the things that they really need to know about. That's a really good example of a tool that helps somebody do business. So your contracts, if you're going to have a change mechanism, and they should have a simple change mechanism, should look at who can propose it, are there any limits, what are the knock-on impacts, and how it all gets recorded. Ideally, changes and their impact should be agreed before they're implemented, because that allows a client to make an informed decision that if they do this change, this is what it's going to cost, this is the impact on the program, this is the impact on the specification. They won't remember. We remember very much less what we talk about than what's spoken to us. That's what we know from evidence about people's memories. So recording things is a really good way to resolve that memory gap between what you said and what they said. So do yourself a favour, include a good, clear, simple change mechanism in your contract. Agree the format in which you're going to do those changes, whether it's by emails or fax or on the back of a unicorn, I don't care. Make it recorded, and then make sure all the other relevant contract documents are updated, that they're dynamic too. Don't stifle innovation and creativity by being too prescriptive. Don't make it difficult to know whether or not you've got a valid variation by making your process too prescriptive. Use tools which help you do business, safeguard your business without annoying everyone who's working with you. Change is a given. The rate of change is increasing all the time. We need our contracts to reflect that and to be useful tools for your project.